Deputy Nathan Cole was driving the snow-covered back roads of Silver Ridge when his headlights sliced through the storm and revealed a nightmare unfolding. A man named Ricky Vaughn, the ruthless enforcer of crime boss Marcus Kane, was kicking and striking a chained, pregnant German shepherd against a rusted fence beside an abandoned lumber yard, shouting, "My cargo doesn't run." As snow turned red beneath her trembling paws, and in that instant as Nathan jumped from his patrol truck and ran toward them, he knew justice would be served, and the evil behind this cruelty would finally pay its price. What happened next will make you cry and believe in miracles again before we start. Tell me where you're watching from. Drop your country in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Snow fell like crushed glass over the mountain town of Silver Ridge, Montana, a place where the wind always seemed to carry secrets. Midnight patrols on these frozen back roads were routine for Deputy Nathan Cole, but tonight felt different. The storm was heavy, smothering sound, and the air carried a sharp tang of diesel and pine. Nathan, 34 years old, was the town's deputy sheriff. A former military police officer, he had returned to Montana after 2 tours overseas. He wore the standard dark navy winter patrol jacket with the Silver Ridge badge stitched at his chest, heavy boots caked with salt, and a radio clipped to his shoulder. Despite his solid frame and practiced calm, Nathan still scanned every shadow like a soldier in hostile territory. As he crested a blind curve, a flicker of movement in the snow caught his eye. He slowed, rolling down the window, letting the hiss of the storm spill inside the cab of his patrol truck. There, between skeletal trees and a sagging barbed wire fence, something moved. Then came the sound, a muffled cry, high and pained, carried by the wind. Nathan's gut tightened. He flipped on the high beams. Headlights cut a corridor through the blizzard and slammed onto a nightmare unfolding beside an abandoned lumber yard on the outskirts of town. A man stood in the glow Ricky Vaughn. Locals whispered about him as the Snake, a name earned from the coiled rattlesnake tattoo slithering up his neck and his habit of sliding out of charges. Ricky was 33, tall and wiry, with a long face darkened by days without sleep. He wore a stained brown bomber jacket lined with shearling, ripped jeans, and steel-toed boots. Once a truck driver from Billings, he had become the ruthless enforcer for Marcus Kane, a crime boss with a growing network in Montana. Ricky's hands, gloved in black leather, gripped the stock of a sawed-off rifle he was using as a club. At Ricky's feet, chained to a rusted iron fence, was a German shepherd female, heavy with pregnancy. Her fur, once black and tan and thick as a winter pelt, was now matted with ice and mud. The chain bit into her neck, and her belly trembled under the weight of unborn puppies. Her eyes flicked toward the headlights, wide but dulled with exhaustion. Ricky swung the rifle's stock into her shoulder and barked, "My cargo doesn't run." Snow burst up where his boots struck. Each blow made her legs buckle. Her paws left red crescents in the drifts. Nathan's breath hitched. Training took over. He slammed the patrol truck into park, yanked the door open and stepped out, drawing his service pistol in a smooth, controlled motion. "Sheriff's Department! Drop the weapon!" His voice cracked across the frozen clearing. Ricky spun, squinting into the beams. For a heartbeat, predator and lawman locked eyes. Ricky's face twisted with something between fury and calculation. He spat onto the snow, muttered a curse, then bolted toward the tree line. Nathan advanced. "Stop! Hands where I can see them!" But Ricky was already a blur, disappearing into the snow-laden pines. The idling pickup truck he had left behind sputtered, exhaust pouring out like smoke from a dragon's nostrils. Nathan knelt beside the dog. The chain was thick, padlocked to the fence post. "Hey girl, hang on." His voice softened, the same tone he'd used with nervous K9S years ago. The shepherd whimpered, one paw lifting weakly. He holstered his gun, unclipped a multi-tool, and cut at the chain until it snapped. The dog sagged forward, nearly collapsing against his leg. He slipped his arms beneath her, feeling the tremor of her ribs and the taut swell of her belly. Snow stung his cheeks, but the heat of her body pressed through his gloves. Lights from his patrol truck flashed over the churned-up snow. As he turned to carry her back, something glinted near the fence post. He crouched and found a burner cell phone, screen still glowing despite the cold. Across the screen blinked a message. MK. Delivery failed. Get it back now? Attached was a file listing code numbers under the heading K9 Inventory. Nathan's jaw tightened. Marcus Kane. The rumors about his trafficking ring had just come alive in the snow at his feet. The shepherd stirred, eyes fluttering open. He caught a whiff of motor oil and coppery blood from her fur. "You're safe now," he murmured. "Nobody's gonna hurt you again." He loaded her gently into the back seat of his patrol truck, covering her with his spare duty jacket. As he slid behind the wheel, the storm outside seemed to shift. This was no random act of cruelty. This was a message, and Nathan had just intercepted it. He radioed dispatch. "This is Deputy Cole. I need animal control and backup at the old mill yard. Suspect fled on foot. I'm transporting an injured animal." Static crackled back, but he hardly heard it. His eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. The dog curled on the seat, belly heaving. In his mind, the pieces clicked into place. Ricky Vaughn, Marcus Kane, the missing K9s, the coded file. As he drove toward Silver Ridge, the snow thickened, blotting out the road behind him. He tightened his grip on the wheel. In that instant, he knew justice would be served. The evil behind this cruelty would finally pay its price. Snow clung to the windshield of Nathan Cole's patrol truck as he eased down Main Street. The heart of Silver Ridge now reduced to a few glowing windows and snow-piled porches. The German shepherd female lay curled in the back seat, wrapped in his spare duty jacket, her breaths shallow but steady. Nathan had given her a name during the Drive Dakota Something Soft, a word to hold on to while she trembled. The clinic sat at the far end of town, a squat brick building with a green wooden sign swinging in the storm. Heart Animal Care. Inside, the lights burned warm and yellow against the night. Nathan parked close, grabbed his jacket tighter, and lifted Dakota into his arms. She felt heavier now, or maybe it was the weight of knowing how close she had come to dying. When he pushed through the door, a chime rang. A woman emerged from the back room wiping her hands on a towel. Dr. Emma Hart was 28, petite but strong-armed from years of handling large animals. Her hair was tied back in a practical bun, and she wore a dark blue scrub top under a fleece vest embroidered with the clinic's name. Raised in Helena, Montana, she had returned home after veterinary school to work in small towns no one else wanted to serve. There was a steadiness in her pale green eyes, the kind of look that could calm a panicked horse or a rattled deputy. Nathan introduced himself quickly and laid Dakota on the examination table. The dog whimpered but did not snap, tail curled tight under her body. Emma's gloved hands moved gently over the dog's flank, pressing and listening, murmuring soothing words. "She's in late pregnancy," she said softly, "and badly dehydrated." Her fingers paused at a faint ridge on the dog's neck. "There's something embedded here." Nathan handed over the burner phone he'd collected at the scene. "She was chained up at the old lumber yard. The guy beating her ran off. Name's Ricky Vaughn." He watched as Emma found a small, raised bump beneath Dakota's fur and frowned. "It's a microchip," she said. She retrieved a handheld scanner from the counter. The beep was sharp. Then a number flashed across the display. Emma's brows knit. "This is an old law enforcement K9 registry code. She belonged to a program that shut down 6 months ago. They reported several animals missing." She turned the scanner to Nathan. "This girl's not just a stray." Nathan's jaw tightened. He had heard whispers about Marcus Kane's trafficking ring dogs, weapons, whatever moved quietly across borders. Now it felt real in his hands. Emma continued the exam. She noted a healed surgical line in Dakota's ear, a sign of prior training or tracking implants. She collected blood samples, her movements deliberate. When she pulled the needle out, the vial filled with dark red fluid, but something off glimmered at the bottom. She tilted it toward the light. "There's a residue here," she said slowly. "It's not just blood." She dipped a test strip, then showed Nathan the faint blue change. Traces of narcotics. This dog's been used as a carrier. Nathan felt the back of his neck prickle. He stepped back, scanning the clinic through the window. Snow continued to drift down, streetlight halos bending in the wind. If they were moving product inside her, Emma shook her head. Not inside, but on her fur, in her wounds, maybe hidden compartments sewn into collars or harnesses. This residue means she's been in direct contact. Someone is testing or transporting. Her voice hardened. And she's pregnant. That makes it worse. Dakota stirred, letting out a low moan. Nathan rested a hand on her head, feeling the tension in her muscles. She's been trained before, he murmured. Look at the way she's watching us. She wants to trust, but she's waiting for the next blow. Emma prepared a saline drip, hooking it gently to Dakota's foreleg. The dog shivered once, then settled as fluid entered her veins. Emma's tone softened. You did the right thing bringing her here fast. Another hour outside, and she could have lost the litter or her own life. Nathan nodded, but his mind raced. Ricky Vaughn, Marcus Kane, K9 inventory lists, narcotics traces. He glanced at his radio, but decided against calling it in just yet. He wanted to piece this together before the news spread. Emma covered Dakota with a thermal blanket and adjusted the IV. She'll need a safe place to rest, she said. My clinic is secure, but if someone was beating her in public, they won't hesitate to come looking. Nathan crossed his arms, scanning the room again. The clinic smelled of antiseptic and cedar bedding, a strange echo of both hospital and barn. We'll keep her here for the night. I'll post a unit outside if I can. Tomorrow, I'll check the serial number on that chip and pull her old handler file. Emma gave a short nod. I'll run the blood work for confirmation. If you're right about the traffickers, we're standing in the middle of something big. She turned her gaze back to Dakota, eyes softening again. She deserves better than this. Nathan crouched near the table, meeting the dog's amber eyes. We'll get them, he said under his breath. Dakota blinked once, a slow trust gesture, then rested her head on her paws. The storm outside beat harder against the windows, rattling the glass. Nathan thought of Ricky disappearing into the trees, the burner phone, the file labeled K9 Inventory. He thought of Marcus Kane, a name whispered like a curse at the station. In the distance, a snowplow passed, its orange lights sweeping the front windows like a lighthouse beam. He straightened, pulling his coat tighter. I'll stay here tonight, he told Emma, at least until she stabilizes. Emma didn't argue. She prepared a second IV bag and set out a small cot in the corner. Nathan sat down, service pistol within reach but hidden under his jacket. In his mind, he could still see Ricky's boot slamming down, hear the crack of the rifle butt, smell diesel and blood. He closed his eyes for a moment and promised himself that this time, the ones who hurt the innocent would not slip away. Dakota shifted, a faint whimper rising in her throat. Nathan opened his eyes, reached out, and gently stroked the back of her neck. You're safe now, he whispered. I've got you. Outside, Silver Ridge slept under a quilt of snow, unaware that in a small veterinary clinic at the edge of town, the first thread of a criminal empire had just been pulled. By the time dawn began to gray the edges of Silver Ridge, the snow had stopped falling but left the streets buried under white drifts. Deputy Nathan Cole pushed open the rear door of the small police station, the hinges creaking in the cold. The building was modest 3 offices, 1 dispatch room, a lockup for human detainees, and, tucked behind a steel door, a small animal holding area designed for strays or seized pets until animal control could take them. It wasn't much, but it was the safest place he could think of for Dakota right now. He carried the German Shepherd female through the hall, her weight shifting as she tried to lift her head. Dakota still wore the IV line Emma Hart had set up hours earlier, now taped securely under a light bandage. Nathan had wrapped her in a police-issue thermal blanket, making her look almost like a soldier carried off a battlefield. Her eyes flicked to every corner, nostrils flaring at the smells of gun oil, paper, and floor cleaner. Inside the holding area, a single large kennel stood waiting, lined with a fleece mat. Nathan gently set Dakota down. She hesitated, then stepped inside on her own, turning once before curling into the bedding. The sight of the bars and tile walls seemed to trigger an old memory in her. She gave a low, alert bark, then quieted when Nathan crouched to her level. "It's just for now, girl." "You're safe," he murmured. Nathan returned to his desk and opened the evidence bag containing Ricky Vaughn's burner phone. He scrolled past the messages, noting the timestamps. The text from MK was one of several. Further down, he found a spreadsheet labeled Inventory. Rows of code numbers scrolled endlessly, each matching the ID format Emma had scanned from Dakota's chip. He highlighted a dozen entries and cross-checked them with the missing canine reports he'd seen months ago. The match was nearly perfect. This wasn't just one stolen dog, it was a pipeline. A soft knock came at the open doorway. Officer Daniel Ruiz stepped inside, carrying a clipboard. Daniel was 27, a new recruit from Bozeman, his patrol jacket still stiff with new creases. He wore his dark hair cropped short and had a boyish eagerness to his posture. "Morning, Deputy," he said. "Dispatch asked me to check on the animal you brought in. Want me to log her?" Nathan nodded. "Dakota, female German Shepherd, late pregnancy, victim of abuse tied to Ricky Vaughn." Daniel jotted quickly. "I heard about Vaughn Snake, right? Works for Marcus Kane?" He looked toward the kennel and blinked. "She's huge." "Poor thing." "Yeah," Nathan said. "Keep it off the radio. We're sitting on something bigger than a cruelty case." Daniel raised his eyebrows but didn't push. He glanced at the security monitor mounted on the wall, 4 grainy camera feeds of the station's perimeter. "Motion alarm tripped twice overnight," he said. "Just shadows, I guess." Could have been deer. Nathan followed his gaze to the screen. A flicker of movement danced at the edge of one frame, the alley beside the station. He rewound the footage, slowed it. For a moment a figure appeared, just a silhouette under a hood, lingering near the back fence before slipping out of view. Too big to be a deer. "Not deer," Nathan murmured. He leaned closer. "Run a patrol car past the alley every hour, and make sure this footage is saved to the cloud." Daniel nodded and slipped back out. Nathan exhaled and rubbed his temples. The office smelled of burnt coffee and damp wool. On his desk lay Dakota's case file, half-finished report forms, the microchip number, Emma's preliminary blood work results. He added a new note about the intruder on camera, then returned to scrolling through Ricky's phone. One photo stopped him cold. A dimly lit storage room lined with cages. Inside, dogs of various breeds stared out, some with shaved patches where IVS had been inserted. Another photo showed a map with pins along the Canadian border. He printed the images, pinned them to a corkboard above his desk. One by one, the pins began to form a pattern. A bark echoed from the kennel. Nathan walked back and found Dakota standing, ears pricked, body tense. Her gaze fixed on the far door as though she sensed something outside. The low growl in her throat wasn't fear, it was warning. "You hear it too," Nathan whispered. He flicked off the overhead light and cracked the blinds. The alley was empty except for swirling snow, but the hair on his neck still rose. He returned to his desk and typed a quick encrypted email to a state investigator he trusted. Agent Sarah Whitfield, 42, a veteran of the Montana Division of Criminal Investigation, had helped him once before on a weapons case. She was tall, broad-shouldered, with graying blonde hair and a habit of wearing long wool coats that made her look like an attorney rather than a cop. He attached the inventory file, wrote, "Need confirmation on missing K9s. Keep off main channels." Then he hit send. Back in the kennel, Dakota circled once and lay down again, but her eyes stayed on the door. Nathan crouched beside her, slid a small stainless steel water dish under the gate. She sniffed, then lapped slowly. The bandage on her foreleg trembled, but held. The intercom buzzed. "Cole? It's Ruiz. Got a call from Emma Hart. She says she's finishing the lab tests, wants to bring the results over in person." "Copy that," Nathan said. "Let her in through the side entrance." Minutes later, Emma appeared at the door carrying a messenger bag. Snow clung to her boots and the shoulders of her parka. She gave Nathan a brisk nod. "How's she holding up?" "She's alert," Nathan said. "Still keyed up." Emma set her bag on the counter, pulled out papers and a flash drive. "Blood panels confirm the residue I found. Multiple narcotics markers. Whoever handled her was using her as a moving test subject." Her eyes flicked to the kennel. "She's calmer than before, though." Nathan leaned back in his chair. "Cameras picked up someone outside. Could be Vaughn, checking if we've still got her." Emma's brow furrowed. "They won't stop." "Not if she's evidence. We're going to move her to a safer location," Nathan said. "But first I need to cross-check every dog on that inventory list." He slid the printed photo of the cages toward her. "Recognize any of these?" Emma looked and her lips pressed thin. "Yes, that's the old shipping warehouse north of town. Closed 5 years ago." Nathan jotted a note. "Good. That narrows it down." Another bark echoed, this time sharper. Nathan rose, hand brushing his holster, and peered through the side window. A dark sedan rolled slowly past on the snow-packed street, windows tinted. No plates on the bumper. He memorized the shape, then watched it vanish at the next intersection. Emma's hand drifted to the kennel bars, fingertips brushing Dakota's fur through the gap. "She's been through hell," she whispered, "but she's still trying to protect someone." Nathan nodded. "That's why I gave her a name." He pulled a heavy police blanket over the kennel's top to dim the light. "She needs to feel hidden." The clock ticked past noon. The storm outside had softened into steady flakes. The station hummed with low radio chatter. Dakota's breathing steadied. Nathan closed the burner phone, slid it into an evidence bag, and locked it in his desk. His mind ticked with the details: names, places, dogs lost and trafficked. He looked once more at the kennel, at the amber eyes glowing under the blanket. "Hang in there, girl," he murmured. "We're going to end this." Outside, somewhere in Silver Ridge, Ricky Vaughn was already plotting his next move. But for now, inside the holding kennel at the station, the first real threads of Marcus Kane's empire had been caught. Afternoon light broke weakly through the cloud cover, turning the snowbanks of Silver Ridge into glistening glass. Inside the police station, the small holding kennel hummed with a low heater. Dakota lay curled beneath a police blanket, her ears pricked toward every sound, amber eyes alert. Deputy Nathan Cole sat at his desk. The inventory files spread out before him like pieces of a crime scene he couldn't yet assemble. His coffee had gone cold, but his nerves stayed taut. A soft chime at the front desk announced a visitor. Officer Daniel Ruiz poked his head into Nathan's office. "Delivery truck just pulled up," he said. "Guy says he's dropping supplies for the evidence locker." His brows were furrowed. "I don't remember ordering anything." Nathan stood. "Bring him in." He slid his sidearm discreetly under his jacket and walked out. Through the window he saw the driver, a tall man in a brown insulated jacket, ball cap pulled low, a clipboard tucked under one arm. Snow crusted his boots. Something about his stance made Nathan's stomach tighten. The man pushed open the door and stepped into the vestibule, stamping snow off his boots. Ricky Vaughn, the snake, was 33 but looked older under the harsh indoor light, a week's stubble framing his angular jaw. The snake tattoo on his neck peaked above his collar. He had swapped his bomber jacket for a delivery uniform and wore gloves with the fingertips cut off. His smile was practiced, but his eyes darted to the hall where the holding kennel lay. "Afternoon, officers," he drawled. "Got a shipment for you." Nathan met his eyes. "Let me see your paperwork." Ricky handed over a clipboard. The form was blank except for a signature line. Nathan glanced at Daniel. "Run the truck plates." Daniel slipped out, radio already to his mouth. In the kennel, Dakota suddenly rose, ears high, hackles lifting. A deep, rolling bark thundered out of her chest, the kind of sound a trained K9 makes when it smells a threat. She fixed on Ricky's scent, her gaze unblinking. Ricky's smile faltered. "That your dog?" "She's evidence," Nathan said evenly. "Stay where you are." But Ricky had already shifted his weight toward the hall. Nathan stepped between him and the kennel door. "Don't even think about it." Outside, Daniel's voice rose through the radio. "Deputy Cole, the plates are fake." "This isn't a delivery truck." Nathan's hand dropped to his holster. "You're under arrest for—" Ricky dropped the clipboard and lunged for the exit. Nathan grabbed his sleeve, but the man twisted free, knocking over a chair. The door slammed as he bolted into the alley. Nathan tore after him, boots punching into snow. The delivery truck still idled by the curb. Its back door swung half open, revealing empty boxes stacked like a false wall. Nathan yanked the door fully open and saw a small duffel bag on the floor. Inside lay a micro SD card, several zip ties, and a cloth muzzle gear for snatching a dog fast. He pocketed the SD card and scanned the street. Ricky had vanished into the back alleys of Silver Ridge, leaving only tracks veering toward the frozen creek. Nathan returned to the station, adrenaline still pounding. Daniel met him at the door, panting. "You okay?" "Yeah," Nathan said, "but he's bold." Came right to the station, he handed Daniel the duffel bag. "Tag this, and secure every entrance." Back at his desk, Nathan inserted the SD card into his laptop. A folder popped open. Dozens of video clips filmed in a dim warehouse. Dogs, mostly German shepherds, were chained to steel posts, running obstacle courses or forced into crates while men in ski masks timed them. Another video showed a tattooed arm injecting a tranquilizer into a dog's hind leg. The voice in the background matched Ricky's, barking orders and counting cash. Nathan muted the sound, jaw tight. He clicked to the last file and froze. Marcus Kane's voice low, deliberate. "Get that shepherd back before it talks with its eyes. My cargo doesn't run." Nathan leaned back, rubbing his eyes. This was the first time he'd heard Kane's voice on record. The evidence was damning, but it also painted a target on Dakota's back. The door opened softly. Emma Hart entered wearing a thick gray peacoat over jeans, snow melting on her boots. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold. "I came as soon as I heard," she said. "Daniel told me what happened." Nathan gestured her inside, turning the laptop so she could see the paused video frame. He walked in, dressed as a delivery guy. "Left me this?" Emma's eyes widened at the footage. "That's Marcus Kane's training warehouse. I recognize the markings on the walls. I saw it years ago when I worked a rescue case." She straightened. "If Kane's sending Vaughn personally, he's desperate." Nathan nodded. She smelled him the second he stepped inside. And he glanced toward the kennel. Dakota lay back down, but her eyes still watched the hallway like a sentry. Emma crouched beside the kennel, speaking softly to the dog. "Good girl." You remembered him. Dakota's tail flicked once, but stayed curled. Daniel reappeared with a printout. Plates traced back to a scrapyard outside Billings. Stolen last week, Nathan took the paper, added it to the growing board on his wall. He's trying to recover evidence. And Kane's ordering him to get the cargo back before it exposes the whole ring. Emma folded her arms, eyes narrowing. If he's willing to walk into a police station, he's not scared anymore. Or he's desperate enough to risk everything. Nathan stared at the videos again. "We need a warrant for that warehouse." He closed the laptop and looked at Daniel. "Double the patrols tonight. Lock every door and get the state lab on standby. This card goes in evidence." Daniel nodded and left. Emma stood, brushing snow from her coat sleeve. "She's holding up better than I expected," she said, nodding toward Dakota, "but she can sense all this tension." Nathan crouched at the kennel again, sliding fresh water under the gate. "Hang in there," he murmured to the dog. "They're not going to hurt you again." Outside, the afternoon dimmed into early evening. Snow swirled against the windows like restless ghosts. Nathan looked once more at the SD card, then at the corkboard lined with maps and photos. The line between protecting Dakota and dismantling Marcus Kane's network had blurred, but the evidence was stronger now, and so was his resolve. In a shadowed office across town, Marcus Kane himself received Ricky Vaughn's frantic call. Kane was in his late 40s, a heavy-set man with close-cropped black hair and a penchant for expensive suits even in Montana winters. Raised in Chicago, he had migrated west to run logistics and built his empire on back roads and hidden crates. His office was paneled in dark wood, a mounted elk head above the fireplace. He listened to Ricky's garbled report, eyes narrowing. "You, go back," he ordered through the phone. "Get the shepherd back before anyone connects it to me." "I don't care what it takes." Snow rattled the windows of Silver Ridge Station as Nathan shut off the lights in his office. Somewhere outside, Ricky Vaughn was circling again, and above him, Marcus Kane had tightened the leash. But for now, Dakota slept under the police blanket, breathing in quiet, and Nathan sat vigil, planning his next move. The winter sky above Silver Ridge had shifted from gray to a dull copper as the sun went down behind the mountain ridge. Inside the police station, the walls hummed with the quiet of after-hours work. Deputy Nathan Cole stood at the corkboard covered in photos and maps, his dark navy patrol jacket unbuttoned, sleeves rolled up, eyes scanning the growing constellation of evidence. Next to him, Dr. Emma Hart sat at his desk, laptop open, hair pulled back into a quick knot, reading through the last files from the SD card. Dakota rested in the kennel nearby, her heavy belly pressed to the fleece mat. Though she dozed, her ears flicked at every noise. The sound of tapping keys and rustling paper filled the room like a soft metronome. Nathan spoke low, pointing at a photo. "Every code on that inventory matches a missing K9 from a law enforcement agency across the state." Emma nodded. "And not just here. These numbers go across the border. This is organized." She clicked to enlarge a grainy still of cages stacked 3 high. "This is not a simple dogfighting ring. This is a trafficking network." Nathan crossed his arms, leaning back. "Marcus Kane's network." He traced a line on the map connecting Silver Ridge to a border town. "He's using K9 dogs to run narcotics and weapons." Emma turned the screen toward him, eyes narrowing. "And look at this." She opened a document titled Trial Run Data. A row of numbers ran alongside code words. At the bottom was a familiar ID Dakota's microchip number. "She was one of the test runs," Emma said. "They were moving small amounts first, building her tolerance or checking her tracking ability. When she got pregnant, they tried to dispose of her." Nathan exhaled slowly, jaw tight. They weren't just hurting animals. They were weaponizing them. The phone on the desk buzzed. Nathan glanced at the display agent Sarah Whitfield, his contact at the State Division. He put it on speaker. "Cole," she said, her voice crackling over the line, "I got your files." "You're right. Kane's been on our radar, but we never had proof this direct. Be careful, he's violent when cornered." Nathan glanced at Emma. "We've already had one close call. He sent Ricky Vaughn right into my station." Sarah's tone shifted, more somber. "There's more. One of our undercover agents went missing 3 months ago while tracking Kane's warehouse north of town. Her name was Linda Marquez, 39, a veteran investigator out of Seattle. She was last seen near a decommissioned rail yard 15 miles from you. We think Kane might have captured her. Emma's fingers froze on the keyboard. "She's been missing all this time?" "She was working the same K9 angle," Sarah continued. "If Kane caught her, he'll use her as leverage or worse." Nathan rubbed his temples. "Send me her photo." A file arrived seconds later. The woman in the picture had shoulder-length black hair, olive skin, and the calm eyes of someone used to undercover work. She wore a parka and jeans, a badge clipped to her belt. Nathan printed it and pinned it to the board under Missing. Emma leaned closer. "If Linda found the warehouse, she might know where they're keeping the dogs." Nathan nodded. "And if she's alive, Kane knows we're closing in." He ended the call and turned back to Emma. "This isn't just about Dakota anymore. We've got a missing agent on top of everything else." Emma pulled up a satellite map on her laptop, fingers moving quickly. "I can cross-reference the locations from the SD card with the last cell ping from Linda Marquez. Maybe find overlap." Nathan watched her work. Her green eyes were lit by the laptop's glow, focused, determined. "You're good at this," he said quietly. She smiled faintly. "I grew up with a dad who mapped elk trails." Data patterns are just another kind of tracking. Dakota stirred and gave a low whine. Nathan crouched by the kennel, sliding his hand against the bars. The dog's warm breath puffed against his fingers. "We're closing in," he told her softly. "We'll make them pay." Emma found the overlap moments later. "Here," she said. "Old freight yard, north of town. That's where Linda's phone last pinged, and it matches the graffiti in the background of Kane's training videos. Nathan drew a red circle on the map. That's our place. The door to the station opened then, letting in a swirl of snow. Sergeant Paul Grady stepped inside, a tall, broad man in his mid-50s with a lined face and steel-gray mustache. He wore the same winter patrol jacket but with a rank pin on the collar. A native of Butte, Montana, Grady had worked rural law enforcement for decades and carried himself with quiet authority. "Cole," he said, "dispatch says you've been keeping something big off the books." Nathan met his eyes. "Trying to build a case before it leaks." He gestured to the board. "Marcus Kane's using stolen K9s for smuggling." Grady looked at the board, then at Dakota in the kennel. "That's a hell of a thing," he muttered. "Need my help?" Nathan hesitated, then nodded. "Lock down the station tonight. Kane's already tried once Grady tipped his hat back. Consider it done." He left to check the perimeter, boots crunching on tile. Emma leaned back in her chair. If Kane's willing to send Vaughn here in daylight, he'll escalate. Nathan turned off the speakerphone, grabbed a new file folder, and began writing up the discovery. "That's why we have to stay ahead. If Linda Marquez is alive, she's our key." Outside the window, darkness had settled over Silver Ridge. The streetlights glowed like halos in the falling snow. Dakota's breathing deepened, but her ears still swiveled at every sound, attuned to the danger pressing in from beyond the station walls. Nathan closed the folder and stood. "Tonight, we guard her. Tomorrow, we start moving." Emma packed up her laptop, but her gaze stayed on the board where Linda's photo now hung beside Dakota's chip number. "They're connected," she murmured. "We just have to prove it." Nathan dimmed the lights in the office, leaving only the glow of the security monitors. On screen, the alley outside the station stretched empty, snow drifting over tire tracks. But somewhere beyond that screen, Marcus Kane was tightening his grip. Nathan crouched one last time beside Dakota's kennel. "Rest now," he said softly. "The storm's only starting, but we're with you." The dog blinked slowly, then laid her head back down. The room fell into the hush of snow-muted night, but the corkboard of evidence and the sleeping dog marked the fault line of a crime about to break open. Darkness dropped over Silver Ridge like a black curtain stitched with snow. In the rear lot of the police station, trucks idled in a silent line, their exhaust making white ghosts in the cold air. Deputy Nathan Cole pulled on a tactical vest over his dark navy patrol jacket, fingers brushing the badge clipped at his chest. His breath plumed as he checked his sidearm and radio. Tonight would be the first strike against Marcus Kane's network, a raid on the hidden storage unit Ricky Vaughn had been using north of town. Inside the kennel, Dakota stirred. Her belly was still round, but she had been gaining strength with each passing day, muscles twitching like coiled springs. Nathan crouched beside her, sliding a gentle hand under her collar. "You're staying close," he whispered, "but not in the line of fire." Yet the dog's amber eyes held a resolve older than fear. In the lot, Agent Sarah Whitfield arrived in a state-issued SUV. At 42, she carried herself with the authority of years in covert operations. She wore a black parka over body armor, her blonde, streaked hair tied back, a scarf concealing a line of old scars along her throat. Sarah had driven down from Helena to coordinate the raid, her face lined but steady. "We go in quiet," she said, stepping from the SUV. "No sirens." No mistakes. Behind her stood Trooper Ben Avery, 36, a broad-shouldered highway patrolman with dark eyes and a calm demeanor. Raised on a ranch near Great Falls, he'd joined the state force after serving in the Marines. His heavy boots and snow-caked gloves made him look like a farmer caught in a war zone. Nathan glanced at the printed map Sarah held. The warehouse sat at the edge of an abandoned gravel pit, a mile of tree line shielding it from the main road. They would approach from the south, split into two teams, and secure the building. Simple on paper. Dakota shifted at Nathan's heel as he clipped her lead. Emma Hart had insisted the dog stay behind at the clinic, but Nathan brought her for her nose and instincts. "She's the only one who knows his scent," Nathan told Sarah. "Just keep her out of the crossfire. Sarah said without looking up. They rolled out at 2000 hours, headlights off, tires crunching quietly over frozen gravel. Snowflakes feathered against the windshield. In the back seat, Dakota sat upright, head near the window, nostrils flaring at the scent of pine and old oil. As they neared the site, Nathan saw the warehouse emerge like a dark tooth against the snow. Corrugated steel walls, roof sagging under ice, a flicker of light leaking from a boarded window. He signaled to kill the engines. The convoy stopped. Trooper Avery and 2 others took the flank. Sarah gestured Nathan forward. They moved through knee-deep snow, rifles low. Nathan led Dakota, his boots muffled. He could hear his own heartbeat louder than the wind. The warehouse loomed closer, a faded sign reading Pine Freight Logistics still clinging to the facade. Sarah raised a fist. "Go!" she mouthed. The team fanned out. 2 troopers pried open the side door with a crowbar. The metal groaned. A smell of animal musk and chemicals drifted out. Nathan's stomach tightened. They entered in a wedge formation. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of old hay, oil, and something acrid, like burned rubber. Flashlights cut beams through the gloom, revealing rows of cages now empty, doors swinging. The floor was littered with shredded harnesses and syringes. "Clear right," Avery whispered. "Clear left." Nathan moved toward a desk stacked with paperwork. A faint beeping came from a corner. He crouched and found a timer strapped to a smoke canister. His eyes widened. "Smoke bomb!" The canister erupted before he could finish. A thick gray cloud burst outward, swallowing the room in choking fog. Troopers coughed and shouted. Someone knocked over a cage with a clang. Through the haze came a voice, Ricky Vaughn's mocking, echoing. "Too slow, deputy!" Nathan's eyes stung. He grabbed Dakota's lead, crouched low. Shapes darted in the smoke one, 2 armed men slipping through a rear exit. Gunfire cracked once, then again. A bullet pinged off metal near his head. "Fall back!" Sarah's voice cut through the fog, but Nathan saw a figure raising a pistol at him from the smoke. Before he could fire, Dakota lunged, teeth flashing. She clamped onto the gunman's arm, yanking him sideways. The shot went wild into the rafters. Nathan tackled the man, wrenching the gun away, cuffs clicking in seconds. "You're under arrest," he snarled, but the man only spat and laughed. Smoke thickened, turning flashlights into weak halos. Nathan heard an engine outside, a truck roaring to life. "Ricky's getting away!" someone shouted. Sarah's team tried to give chase, but the fog blinded them. The sound of tires spitting gravel faded into the night. When the smoke began to clear, the warehouse stood nearly empty, the cages abandoned, a back door swinging in the cold wind. Nathan staggered to his feet, lungs burning. Dakota's muzzle dripped with melted snow. She stood over the subdued gunman, chest heaving. Nathan scratched behind her ear. "Good girl." "Saved my life." Sarah emerged from the haze, face pale. "He torched the evidence. It's all gone." She coughed, pulling down her scarf. "At least we got one of them." Trooper Avery dragged the captured man upright, mid-30s, dark hair under a knit cap, eyes darting like a trapped animal. His jacket bore a faded shipping company logo, but his calloused hands told another story. "We'll run him through the system," Nathan said. "Maybe he talks." He looked back at the scorched desk. Paper smoldered, leaving only black curls of ash. Emma Hart's voice crackled over Nathan's radio. She had been monitoring the operation from the station. "Nathan, are you okay?" "We're alive," he said hoarsely. "But he knew we were coming." Dakota shook herself, scattering soot onto the floor. Nathan unclipped her lead and let her circle the room, sniffing for clues. She returned with a small scrap of fabric in her teeth, a torn piece of Ricky's jacket, the snake tattoo printed faintly on it. Nathan slipped it into an evidence bag. Snow swirled in through the open door, mixing with smoke. Sarah pressed a hand to her temple. "We'll regroup. We still have the SD card and the map. He can't hide forever." Nathan looked at Dakota, then at the captured gunman. "No, he can't. They left the warehouse as fire crews arrived to douse the smoldering remains. Nathan lifted Dakota into the back seat of his SUV, covering her with a blanket. The dog leaned against him, eyes half closed but still vigilant. On the drive back to Silver Ridge, Nathan replayed the moment in his head. The smoke, the voice, the shot, Dakota's leap. He gripped the wheel harder. They had come close to ending it tonight, but instead Marcus Kane's shadow had stretched farther. Yet he wasn't discouraged. They had proof now of Kane's tactics, and they had a captured man to question. Outside the window, snow kept falling, erasing tracks, but Nathan's resolve had carved itself into ice. This was no longer just an investigation. It was a rescue mission, a reckoning. Night fell hard over Silver Ridge, pressing the snow against the windows of the small police station. The glow of the security monitors was the only light in the hall. Deputy Nathan Cole sat at his desk, rubbing tired eyes, when a low, guttural sound rose from the holding kennel. He turned sharply. Dakota, who had been pacing since dusk, now lay on her side, belly heaving. Her claws scrabbled at the mat, eyes wide and frantic. Nathan's pulse jumped. She wasn't just restless. She was going into labor. He grabbed the phone, dialing fast. "Emma, it's happening," he said. "She's in labor." "I'm on my way," Dr. Emma Hart replied, her voice taut but steady. Outside, snow hissed against the line as she ended the call. Within minutes she arrived at the station, hair tucked under a wool hat, heavy parka zipped up to her chin, medical kit over one shoulder. Her cheeks were red from the cold, but her hands were calm as she knelt beside Dakota. "She's early, but she can do this," Emma said softly. "We'll need space and quiet." Nathan guided her to the small rescue room at the back of the station, an improvised space with a stainless steel counter and warm lamps used for injured strays. Emma spread a clean blanket on the floor. Together, they lifted Dakota carefully, moving her into the room. The dog whimpered but did not resist, her paws slipping on the tile. Emma sat up quickly. Gloves, towels, suction bulbs, saline. "Keep the hall clear," she told Nathan. "She's scared." "She'll fight if strangers crowd her." Nathan nodded, then stepped into the hallway to check the monitors. Officer Daniel Ruiz, stationed at the front desk, glanced over. "Everything okay?" "She's giving birth," Nathan said. "Lock the doors." Daniel rose, hand hovering near his radio. "Copy." On the screen above them, 4 camera feeds flickered. Snow drifted like static across the alley cam. Nathan narrowed his eyes at a shape moving beyond the rear fence. For a moment he thought it was a snowdrift, then the figure shifted, a dark silhouette with a rifle slung across its back. Another figure appeared beside it, then a third. His stomach dropped. "They're here," he murmured. Daniel stiffened. "What?" "Ricky Vaughn. He's back," Nathan said, already drawing his pistol. In the rescue room, Emma had just delivered the first puppy, slick and squirming, when Dakota's ears flicked at the distant sound of boots on snow. Emma saw the change in the dog's eyes. "Nathan?" she called. He pushed the door open. "We've got company." "Keep her safe." Emma's face went pale, but she nodded. She wrapped the newborn in a clean towel, rubbing gently until it squeaked. "Stay with me, girl," she whispered to Dakota. "We're almost there." Outside, headlights swept across the snow as a dark van rolled up and braked silently. 3 men spilled out, dressed in dark coats and balaclavas. Ricky Vaughn led them, the snake tattoo on his neck glistening with sweat despite the cold. He wore a black tactical jacket now, gloved hands gripping a short-barreled rifle. "She's in there," he hissed. "Get the dog and the pups." Kane wants them alive. Nathan stepped out into the snowy yard, service pistol drawn. The wind whipped his coat, flattening his badge against his chest. "Police! Drop your weapons!" he barked. Gunfire cracked in response. Snow exploded at his feet. Nathan ducked behind a parked cruiser, returning fire. The night erupted into muzzle flashes and echoing shots. Inside, Emma crouched low as another contraction rippled through Dakota. The second puppy emerged, shivering in Emma's hands. She wrapped it quickly, tucking it into a padded box beside the first. "We're okay," she murmured. even as the gunfire outside rattled the window panes. Dakota growled low, a mother's warning. Emma stroked her neck. "Focus on the babies," she whispered. In the hall, Daniel Ruiz slammed shut the inner doors and pushed a file cabinet against them. "I'm calling backup," he shouted into the radio. Static hissed back. The line jammed. Nathan shifted position, firing twice. One of Ricky's men went down, sliding into the snow. Ricky barked an order and hurled something toward the building, a small black cylinder clattering across the steps. "Emma! Get down!" Nathan roared. The explosion rocked the side of the station. A fireball blew out a storage window, and a plume of smoke poured into the hall. The evidence room at the rear, the one holding seized narcotics and weapons, went up in flames, alarms screaming. Emma flinched at the blast but kept working, hands steady as the third puppy emerged. She wrapped it, heart hammering. Smoke seeped under the door. "Nathan!" she shouted. "I'm here!" he called back, coughing. He fired again, hitting the van's tire, flattening it with a pop. Ricky cursed and ducked behind the van door, returning fire wildly. Daniel appeared beside Nathan with a shotgun. The young officer's hands trembled, but his eyes were fierce. "We can't let them through!" "We won't," Nathan growled. "Hold this line." Inside, Emma looked around. The rescue room's air grew hazy with smoke. She could hear the fire alarm blaring above the thunder of gunfire. "We have to move," she whispered. She scooped up the 3 puppies into a carry crate, tugged Dakota's IV loose, and coaxed her up. "Come on, girl." This way, Dakota staggered but followed, maternal instinct overriding exhaustion. Emma led her through a side door into the evidence storage basement, a low-ceilinged space with concrete walls. She shoved a steel shelf aside, revealing a small maintenance alcove, and tucked Dakota and the crate inside. "Stay," she whispered. "Stay quiet." Upstairs, Nathan caught sight of Ricky sprinting toward the side entrance. "Ruiz, cover the door!" he barked. He vaulted the cruiser, closing the distance. A shot rang out. Snow sprayed near his boots. He tackled Ricky at the steps, but Ricky rolled away, swinging the rifle like a club. Nathan blocked with his forearm and struck back, their boots skidding on ice. A siren wailed faintly in the distance. Reinforcements finally cutting through. Ricky snarled, "She's ours!" and flung a smoke grenade into the yard. The world went gray. Nathan swung blindly, connecting with Ricky's shoulder, but the man vanished into the haze, leaving only footprints. When the smoke cleared, the van was gone, the yard strewn with the shell casings and one fallen attacker. Flames licked the evidence room window, casting orange light across the snow. Nathan staggered to his feet, lungs burning. Daniel ran up beside him, face pale. "I think they're gone," he gasped. Nathan bolted back inside, calling for Emma. He found her emerging from the basement hatch, soot on her cheeks, Dakota at her side, the crate of puppies clutched to her chest. Relief washed over him. "They're safe," she whispered. "All 3. Nathan exhaled, lowering his gun. He looked at the burning evidence room, then back at Dakota licking her newborns. "We held them off," he said quietly, "but they'll try again." He guided Emma and Dakota back into the rescue room, slamming the steel door behind them. Outside, the first patrol car sirens drew close, their red-blue lights flashing through the snowy night. Nathan sank to a knee beside Dakota, stroking her neck. "You did it," he murmured. "You kept them safe." The dog leaned against him, eyes half closed but still vigilant. The puppies squeaked softly, their tiny bodies wriggling under the blanket. Emma slumped into a chair, trembling from adrenaline. Nathan looked once more at the burning evidence room. The smoke rose like a signal into the winter sky. This fight was far from over, but for now, the lives that mattered most were still here, still breathing. Morning crept over Silver Ridge with a pale, cold light that did nothing to erase the smell of smoke still clinging to the police station walls. Inside, the rescue room looked like a makeshift nursery. Dakota lay curled around her 3 tiny puppies, each pup bundled in soft towels Emma had brought from her clinic. The station's air was heavy with disinfectant and scorched wood from the destroyed evidence room. Deputy Nathan Cole stood by the window, still wearing his dark navy patrol jacket and tactical boots, a shadow of exhaustion across his face. Yet his eyes stayed sharp. The attack last night had hardened his resolve. Emma Hart arrived early, her parka zipped and her laptop bag slung across her shoulder. Snow dotted her hair like silver dust. She crouched by the kennel, checking Dakota and the puppies with gentle hands. "They're stable," she murmured. "But it's not safe here anymore." She glanced up at Nathan. "If Kane sent Vaughn once, he'll send him again." Nathan nodded. "We're moving them today." He stepped to the desk where a pile of evidence bags lay, among them the torn scrap of Ricky's jacket and the SD card. He had spent the night going through its last files. One file stood out, a series of encrypted route schedules labeled Border Run. It described a large shipment due to move through a warehouse near the state line, a location that matched the graffiti Emma had recognized. Nathan turned to the corkboard and pinned a printed map of the northern border. "This is it," he said quietly. "Marcus Kane's preparing a major transfer. If we hit him there, we cut off his operation." Emma pulled out her laptop and began typing fast. "The route's probably covered by traffic cams. I can run a trace of the plate numbers from last night's van against highway footage." She pushed her glasses up her nose, eyes flicking across scrolling lines of code. At that moment, Sergeant Paul Grady entered, Snow still clinging to his mustache. "Morning," he grunted. "Got 2 troopers posted out front. Nobody's getting past us today." He leaned over the map. "That warehouse on the border, it's been empty since the rail company pulled out. Perfect place to stash contraband." Emma frowned at her screen. "I'm seeing a pattern. Trucks with altered plates moving at odd hours. Same route 3 times this week." She zoomed in. "They all converge at a service road near the border." Nathan crossed his arms. "That's where Kane will be. We have a window." A knock came at the door. Officer Dana Kepler stepped inside, a newcomer from Missoula, 29 years old, with a cropped auburn ponytail under her patrol cap. She wore the winter sheriff's uniform like the others but carried a slim folder of reports tucked under her arm. Her reputation was for meticulous casework, and Nathan had asked her to pull everything on Marcus Kane's shell companies. "Here's what I found," she said. "Kane's been buying small lots under fake names near the border. Warehouses, old grain silos, even a decommissioned fuel depot." She laid out photos of deed transfers. Nathan scanned the papers. "He's building a network of ghost properties." Dana nodded. "And this fuel depot matches the location on your map." Emma's laptop pinged. She swiveled it toward Nathan. "Got it. Look, truck footage from a highway camera 2 hours north. Vaughn's van and another semi, both heading to the same depot. I can keep tracking them in real time." Nathan leaned over, a flicker of grim satisfaction in his eyes. "That's our window." He walked to Dakota's kennel, crouched down. The German shepherd raised her head, ears twitching. Her puppies squeaked softly, pressing to her belly. "We're moving you to a safe place," Nathan murmured. "You've done enough." Emma stood. "I'll call my friend at the rescue center in Kalispell. They have secure kennels, off the grid." She pulled out her phone and dialed. Moments later, she nodded. "They're ready." Sergeant Grady tipped his hat back. "We'll load her up in my truck." Less obvious than a patrol car, they prepared quickly. Emma bundled the puppies into a padded crate, Dakota following on a lead, protective but calm. Dana helped carry supplies to the back of Grady's truck, a faded green pickup with no police markings, perfect for a discreet transfer. Nathan supervised every step, eyes scanning the snowy street. When the convoy rolled out, Nathan followed in his SUV, watching the mirrors for tails. The drive to the rescue center was long and silent, snow drifting across the 2-lane road. Emma sat in the passenger seat beside Grady, hands resting lightly on the crate. The rescue center itself sat at the edge of Kalispell, a converted barn surrounded by high fencing and security cameras. Its director, Tommy Beck, met them at the gate. Tommy was in his early 40s, tall and lanky, with a worn Carhartt jacket and a weather-beaten baseball cap. He had spent a decade working search and rescue dogs before opening the center. His handshake was firm, but his eyes softened at the sight of Dakota. "We'll keep her safe," he promised. "No one gets past these gates." They transferred Dakota and the puppies into a warm enclosure lined with straw and heat lamps. Emma lingered, stroking the dog's head. "I'll come back as soon as we can." Nathan stood by the gate, snow settling on his shoulders. "Thank you, Tommy." Back in his SUV, Nathan opened the secure laptop Sarah had provided. He plotted out the raid with precision. 2 teams, one at the fuel depot's south entrance, one at the north. He coordinated with Sarah Whitfield over encrypted text, laying out timelines and code words. Emma glanced at him as they drove back toward Silver Ridge. "You're making a plan," she said quietly. "We're going to finish this," Nathan replied. "No more running, no more ambushes. This time, Kane goes down." Snow hissed under the tires as the mountains closed around them. Nathan's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, his mind replaying the flames in the evidence room and the look in Ricky Vaughn's eyes. By the time they reached the station again, night had fallen. The map on the corkboard glowed under a single lamp. Nathan stood before it, tracing the red circle around the fuel depot with his finger. "Tomorrow, we take the fight to him," he murmured. Emma folded her arms, her laptop still open. "I'll keep the cameras on them until you're ready to move." In the quiet, Nathan looked at her and at the empty kennel where Dakota had been. It felt strange without the dog's presence, but he knew she was safe. For the first time in days, he felt the edge of hope sharpen into purpose. The storm arrived without warning, a wall of white sweeping over Silver Ridge like a living thing. Wind howled against the police station windows, rattling them in their frames. Deputy Nathan Cole stood at the corkboard, dark navy patrol jacket zipped to his throat, every nerve alive. The map of Marcus Kane's border depot still glowed under the desk lamp, but the room's center of gravity had shifted. Dr. Emma Hart was gone. 2 hours earlier, Emma had been on her way back from the Kalispell Rescue Center, where she had left Dakota and 2 of the puppies in a secure pen. She carried the smallest puppy in a carrier, a runt with a distinctive white patch on its chest. Emma had insisted on monitoring the road herself, suspecting Kane's trucks might move that night, but somewhere on the snowbound highway she vanished from Nathan's tracking feed. Now his phone vibrated. A video call blinked on screen. Marcus Kane. For the first time, Nathan saw him live. Kane was in his late 40s, a heavy man with cropped black hair and a scar down one cheek. He wore a dark overcoat over a tailored suit despite the snow whipping behind him. His eyes were shark cold, his voice like a blade. "I have your vet," he said. "Bring me the dog and the pups, or she dies." Nathan's jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake." 10 minutes, Kane said and cut the feed. Nathan slammed a fist on the desk. "He's got her," he muttered. Agent Sarah Whitfield entered, snow melting on her parka. "We've been tracking his cell. He's holed up at the old rail yard, north of town, but this storm, visibility's 0. Nathan exhaled slowly. "We'll use that." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Meaning?" "We fake the handover," Nathan said. "We bring one of the pups. He'll expect Dakota. We'll hide her and flank him." Sergeant Paul Grady joined them, his winter gear layered under a tactical vest. He adjusted his gloves, steel gray mustache bristling. "Risky," he said, "but it could work." They gathered at the Kalispell Rescue Center. Tommy Beck opened the secure pen, Dakota rising on shaky legs, 3 days post-delivery. Her amber eyes flicked from Nathan to the storm beyond the door. Nathan crouched, stroking her neck. "Stay here, girl. I'll bring her back." Emma's phone had last pinged near a derelict switching tower at the rail yard. Sarah briefed the team in the dim light of the barn. "We'll set 2 snipers on the ridge, another team in the loading bay. Nathan goes in with the puppy carrier. We keep eyes on Kane. If he moves, we strike Dakota wind low, pacing. Nathan clipped a spare lead to her collar but left it slack. He wanted her to stay. Yet she pressed against the door, nostrils flaring, as though memorizing the storm. The convoy rolled out in low gear, headlights off, weaving through snowdrifts. Nathan sat in the front seat, the puppy carrier on his lap. Inside, the tiny pup whimpered softly, unaware of its role. Sarah rode beside him, radio pressed to her ear, checking in with the flank teams. The rail yard appeared like a ghost from the storm. Skeletal gantries, rusted freight cars half buried in snow. A single floodlight cut through the blizzard, casting a cone of pale yellow onto the switching tower. Through the swirling flakes, Nathan saw Emma, hands tied behind a support beam, hair whipped across her face by the wind. She held herself upright, trying to keep the puppy carrier secure at her feet. Kane stood a few feet away, pistol drawn, coat flapping. Nathan's heart lurched. "He's using her as bait," he whispered. They parked behind a derelict boxcar. Sarah gave a hand signal. "On my mark," she mouthed. Nathan pulled up his hood and stepped out into the storm. The puppy carrier clutched to his chest. Snow stung his cheeks like needles. "Marcus Kane," he called, voice cutting through the wind. "I brought what you asked for." Kane's gaze snapped to him. "Come closer," he shouted. "Slowly." Nathan trudged forward, boots crunching. The floodlight swung, revealing 3 armed men behind Kane, rifles steady. Emma lifted her chin, eyes meeting Nathan's. Even bound, she projected a strange calm. She whispered something, but the wind swallowed it. Nathan stopped 20 feet away. "Let her go." "You've got your leverage," Kane smirked. "Set the carrier down." Nathan crouched, placing the puppy carrier in the snow. "You'll get nothing if she's hurt." Kane stepped forward, pistol still aimed at Emma. "Where's the mother?" "Safe," Nathan said evenly. "That wasn't the deal." Kane's voice rose. "You think you can cheat me?" High above, Sarah's team shifted into position, scopes glinting. Inside the switching tower, the puppy whimpered. Kane's eyes flicked to the small shape, a hunger of power in his face. "Pick it up," he ordered one of his men. As the gunman stepped forward, the blizzard seemed to deepen. A shadow slipped through the snow from the far side, Dakota, muzzle low, moving like a wraith. She had slipped free of the rescue center during the storm, tracking Kane's scent, driven by something beyond training. Her coat was spattered with snow, but her eyes burned amber. Nathan saw her first. His pulse spiked. He held his breath, keeping Kane's eyes on him. Kane raised the pistol toward Emma, finger tightening on the trigger. "Tell me where the mother is, or I'll—" Dakota burst from the whiteout, a streak of fur and muscle, slamming into Kane's arm. The gun went off, the bullet snapping past Emma's ear into the steel beam. Emma dropped to her knees, rolling away as Dakota locked her jaws on Kane's coat sleeve, dragging him sideways. Nathan lunged forward, tackling the nearest gunman. Shots rang out, but Sarah's snipers answered, pinning the men behind the freight car. Snow exploded as bullets hit. Emma scrambled to the puppy carrier, shielding it with her body, crawling toward cover. Kane roared, trying to wrench free, but Dakota held on, teeth sinking deeper. Nathan swung his pistol butt into Kane's wrist, sending the gun flying into the snow. He grabbed Emma's arm, hauling her upright. "Go!" he barked, pushing her toward the rail car. Sarah's voice cut through the radio. "Perimeter! Secured!" "Move them out!" Nathan pinned Kane face down in the snow, cuffing him with frozen fingers. "Marcus Kane," he said, voice hard. "You're under arrest." The remaining gunmen dropped their weapons as troopers closed in. Sirens wailed faintly beyond the storm. Dakota stepped back, chest heaving, snow clinging to her whiskers. She limped slightly, but her eyes stayed locked on Kane. Emma clutched the puppy to her chest, face pale but unbroken. "You came for me," she whispered to Dakota, tears streaking down her cheeks. Nathan looked around at the chaos, rifles in the snow, troopers swarming, the storm hiding them from the town. He met Sarah's eyes. "We've got him." Sarah nodded, breath fogging in the cold. "Let's get out before the storm buries us." They loaded Kane into a patrol truck, his hands bound, eyes full of rage, but no more power. Dakota limped to Nathan's side, the blizzard swirling around them like applause. Nathan crouched, touching her head gently. "You did it," he whispered. "It's over." The convoy pulled away from the rail yard, lights off, disappearing into the white maze. Behind them, the switching tower stood empty except for drifting snow and the echo of a fight that had ended an empire. The snow finally eased overnight, leaving Silver Ridge wrapped in a soft, glittering blanket. As dawn rose, pale sunlight filtered through drifting clouds, casting the police station in a glow it hadn't seen in months. Inside, the air was quiet, broken only by the low murmur of officers clearing paperwork and the occasional squeak of puppies in the temporary kennel. Deputy Nathan Cole stood at the window of the main office, his dark navy patrol jacket hanging open for the first time, a steaming mug of coffee in his hands. The storm had passed. Marcus Kane and Ricky Vaughn were both behind bars. Across the hall, Dr. Emma Hart knelt beside Dakota, who now had 4 healthy puppies nestled against her belly. The runt from the sting operation had survived the ordeal and was reunited with its siblings. Emma's hair was loose around her shoulders, her face soft but marked with the fatigue of someone who'd carried both medical and moral burdens for weeks. "They're stronger every day," she said, looking up at Nathan. Nathan smiled faintly. "So are we." The small kennel had been converted into a miniature nursery. Blankets lined the floor, and toys Emma had brought from the Kalispell Center hung from the bars. Dakota lifted her head, amber eyes following Nathan as he stepped closer. She looked different now. Still a German shepherd with a soldier's posture, but the tightness had eased from her muscles, the constant vigilance softened. A soft knock at the office door announced Sergeant Paul Grady. He carried a file folder and a folded flag, his steel-gray mustache catching the morning light. "Town council signed off," he said. "They're giving you the old firehouse on Birch Street." Emma blinked. "For what?" Grady smiled. "For the K9 Rescue and Training Center you two keep talking about. You've got their blessing." Nathan took the folder, flipping through the permits. "We're really doing this," he murmured. "A place where no dog ends up like Dakota again." A few hours later, the old firehouse stood ready. A red brick building with tall bay doors, its interior cleaned and warmed by volunteers. The townspeople had been showing up all morning, shoveling snow, hanging banners, setting up folding chairs. Tommy Beck, the lanky rescue director from Kalispell, supervised the installation of new kennels. "Good bones," he said, patting a wall. "We can retrofit for training courses." Officer Dana Kepler arrived in uniform, auburn ponytail bobbing as she carried in boxes of supplies. "Town sent donations," she explained. "Collars, leashes, toys. Feels like Christmas." By midday, the whole town gathered outside the firehouse bundled in coats and scarves. A makeshift podium stood in front, snow cleared away to make room. Mayor Helen Crowley, a dignified woman in her 60s with silver hair tucked under a wool hat, stepped forward. She had lived in Silver Ridge all her life, first as a teacher, then as a city planner, and now mayor. Her voice carried over the crowd. "Today, we honor Deputy Nathan Cole, Dr. Emma Hart, and a brave German shepherd named Dakota. Because of them, our town is safer, and our hearts are bigger." Nathan shifted uncomfortably as the applause rose. Emma squeezed his arm, her green eyes bright despite the cold. Dakota stood beside them wearing a new blue collar embroidered with the words, Honorary K9. Her puppies dozed in a crate behind the podium, warm under a blanket. Mayor Crowley continued, "In partnership with our police department and state agencies, the Silver Ridge Canine Rescue and Training Center will open its doors to train, rehabilitate, and protect the animals who protect us. Let this be the end of cruelty and the beginning of compassion." The crowd cheered. Nathan glanced at Emma. "We actually made it," he whispered. She smiled. "We didn't just stop something. We built something." Later, inside the refurbished firehouse, volunteers assembled training equipment, tunnels, hurdles, scent boxes. Tommy Beck oversaw the layout, explaining how each station would rebuild the dog's confidence. Dana worked with a small group of high school students setting up an adoption desk. Emma moved among the kennels checking the puppies. "We'll start their socialization early," she said. "No harsh commands, no forced drills. Just positive training. Dakota padded after her, tail sweeping slowly, a guardian at ease. Nathan knelt to scratch behind her ears. "You're not just evidence anymore," he said softly. "You're family." Outside, the winter sun began to melt the icicles from the firehouse eaves. Nathan stood on the front steps, watching townspeople depart. For the first time in weeks, the streets felt like a community instead of a battlefield. He thought of Marcus Kane and Ricky Vaughn sitting in the county jail, their empire dismantled, their reach ended. Justice had finally caught up. As the last of the volunteers left, Mayor Crowley approached Nathan again. "Silver Ridge owes you more than we can say," she told him, handing him a small plaque. "But this will have to do." Nathan accepted it, then turned to see Emma standing by the kennels, Dakota leaning against her. The puppies squeaked softly. In that moment, he felt something larger than relief, a sense of renewal, as if the town itself had taken a deep breath. Night came early, but calm. The firehouse glowed warm against the snow. Nathan, Emma, Dakota, and the puppies stood together under the new sign, Silver Ridge Canine Rescue and Training Center. For the first time, the fight was over and the future was theirs to build. In the end, the story of Nathan, Emma, and Dakota is not just about breaking a criminal network, but about how hope and love can outlast cruelty. It reminds us that even in the coldest storms, miracles still happen when people choose courage over fear and compassion over indifference. Just as God sent light into the darkest moments for Dakota and her puppies, He can also send light into our own struggles and guide us to protect what is good. In everyday life, each act of kindness, each moment we stand up for the vulnerable, is a small miracle. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment and tell where you are watching from, subscribe to the channel to join more stories like this, and may God bless every viewer who believes in second chances. Comment Amen if you feel the power of this story and the grace of God working in your own life.